He began with something so small I almost missed its meaning. The next morning, instead of pacing the kitchen with a cup of coffee and that lost look on his face, he made the bed. Then he shaved, put on a clean shirt, and sat at the table with a notebook. I watched from the sink without saying anything. For years I had seen him give his best energy to offices, job sites, deadlines, and other people's demands. Now he was sitting in our own kitchen, as if this home might finally deserve intention too. I did not think making the bed would save a marriage. Let me be plain about that. Small acts are not magic, but small acts can reveal whether a person is turning back toward life or drifting farther away from it. That morning he wrote down 3 things in his notebook. Fix the loose cabinet hinge, walk for 20 minutes, cook dinner before I got back from my sister's house. It was not an ambitious list. That was what made it honest. I remember how strange those first weeks felt. After a lifetime of structured work, I did not know how to live in unclaimed hours. A man can sit in his own home and feel unemployed, not just in labor, but in identity. That is what happened to me. I had always believed a full day had to look big to count. Meetings, deadlines, problems, pressure. Now I was looking at a cabinet hinge like it mattered, and to my surprise, it did matter, because every small task finished inside my own life gave me back a little self-respect that no company was ever going to return. He also started walking every morning. At first it looked like agitation more than peace. He went out in decent shoes and a light jacket, shoulders still carrying the stiffness of someone bracing for a day that no longer existed. But when he came back, there was color in his face. Sometimes he brought in the mail, sometimes bread from the corner store, sometimes nothing but quieter eyes. That was when I began to understand that healing in older age is often embarrassingly ordinary. It is not grand insight first. It is a body moving again, a room put in order, a meal made on time, a person beginning to stay present for his own life. I also did something I had not done in years. I stopped managing all the emotional weather for both of us. Wives know this labor well. We soften, translate, anticipate, excuse, absorb. We cushion disappointments before they fully land. We make a household feel less tense by carrying tension inside ourselves. I had done that for too long, so when he came to me uncertain, embarrassed, or ashamed in those early months, I did not rush to rescue his pride. I answered honestly, not harshly, just honestly. If he asked whether he had been distant, I said yes. If he asked whether the children had felt it, I said yes. If he asked whether I had been lonely, I said longer than he knew. Those conversations were not elegant. Some took place at the kitchen table over cold coffee. Some happened in the car after grocery shopping. One happened while I was folding towels, and he stood in the doorway like a man half ready to leave the room. But truth spoken in ordinary places has a way of reaching deeper than dramatic declarations. We were not trying to win. We were trying finally to stop living around the wound as if it had become furniture. One afternoon I drove to a diner after another useless interview. The waitress asked if I had retired. I told her no, that I had been removed. She said, "That can hurt worse." I do not think she knew what that sentence did to me. It was the first time a stranger named my condition without dressing it up. I sat there with a bowl of soup I barely touched and understood something I should have understood much younger. Retirement sounds dignified because it suggests completion. What I felt was erasure. But sitting in that booth, I also realized nobody there cared what my old title had been. I was just a man, still breathing, still answerable for what came next. That was not even the part that changed me most. The deeper change came a week later when our neighbor Luis knocked on the door with a broken lamp from his mother's house. He knew I had tools. He asked if I could look at it. We stood in the garage together under that bare bulb while I checked the wiring. We talked about ordinary things first, bills, weather, his daughter starting college. Then he said, almost casually, "My mother misses having someone around who knows how to fix things. Old people disappear too fast now." That sentence followed me all evening. Old people disappear too fast now, not always by dying, sometimes by withdrawing, sometimes by deciding their useful years are behind them, sometimes by sitting in a chair waiting for the phone to ring, slowly becoming smaller inside their own lives. I could feel how close I had come to that. He came into the kitchen after Luis left and stood there quieter than usual. I was peeling potatoes at the sink. He said, "Do you think I disappeared here before I ever disappeared anywhere else?" I did not answer quickly because some questions deserve a clean response. Then I dried my hands, turned toward him and said, "Yes, but I think you're coming back." He looked down when I said that. Not because he was angry, because he was trying not to cry in front of me. Older men carry sorrow in a very guarded way. They do not always sob. Sometimes they simply go still, and their face loses its defenses. That was what happened to him. And that was the moment I knew our marriage had not been saved yet, but it was no longer being abandoned. The next morning he walked across the street and asked Luis if his mother needed help with anything else. That simple decision opened a door neither of us had seen coming. Her name was Teresa. She was 83, sharp as a needle in some ways, fragile in others, and living alone in a house that was clean, but beginning to show where age had started bargaining with the body. The first thing I fixed there was a back door that stuck in damp weather, then a loose handrail, then a kitchen drawer that kept falling off its track. None of it was important by the standards I used to live by. No budgets, no contracts, no teams, no title, just a woman standing in a cardigan by the stove saying, "I'm glad you came," and meaning it in a way that made my chest feel unexpectedly full. From my side, I watched something happen to my husband that work had never managed to give him, no matter how much it paid. He came home steadier, not triumphant, not inflated, just settled. There is a look some men get when they have spent the day in contact with real usefulness instead of abstract pressure. Their shoulders drop, their voice changes, their eyes stop scanning for the next demand. I had not seen that look on him in years, and I began to understand something about marriage that I wish younger wives understood sooner. Sometimes what a husband needs is not constant praise, nor endless accommodation, nor one more speech about being emotionally available. Sometimes he needs to encounter himself again in a setting where his worth is immediate, human, and unmarketed. He needs to feel that his hands, his patience, his steadiness, and his presence still have a place in the world outside a payroll system. That does not excuse emotional neglect. It explains, in part, how some men find their way back from it. I was learning too. For years, I had tied my own identity to being the one who adjusted, the one who understood, the one who could survive on less affection than she needed. When a woman does that long enough, she starts mistaking endurance for character. But endurance is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is simply a slow consent to unhappiness. So while he was rebuilding himself through ordinary acts, I was rebuilding myself through honesty. I stopped swallowing every disappointment to keep the peace. I said what I felt sooner. I asked for companionship without wrapping it in politeness. And when I needed quiet, or rest, or help, I said that too. That changed the air between us more than either of us expected. We began eating dinner at the table without the television on. That detail may sound small to younger people, but do not underestimate what screens can steal from a tired marriage. A television can become a third presence in the room, absorbing the words that should have been spoken to each other. So we turned it off. Some nights we talked easily. Some nights the silence still felt stiff, as if we were relearning how to inhabit the same hour. But the table became ours again, not just a surface for plates and mail. One evening, after Teresa had sent over a slice of pound cake wrapped in wax paper as thanks for fixing her porch light, we sat across from each other in the kitchen with coffee. The dishes were done. The house was quiet. I looked at my wife and said, "I used to think money was the thing that kept a family safe." She did not answer right away. Then she said, "Money keeps the lights on. Presence keeps a home from going cold." That sentence did not shame me. It clarified me. All at once I could see the years differently. I had not failed because I worked hard. I had failed because I made hard work the center of my moral identity and expected love to organize itself around whatever scraps of me were left over. That was the deeper poverty of my middle years. Not lack of income, lack of inward life, lack of attention, lack of plain, undistracted presence with the people who needed me in ways a paycheck could never satisfy. Around that time, our daughter began calling more often. At first, it was still practical things. A school fundraiser for her youngest, a recipe question, whether we had an extra folding table for a church event. But then, one afternoon, she stayed on the phone after the practical question was over. She asked how her father was doing. Really doing. I answered honestly. I said he was changing, though I did not yet know what would hold. A week later, she stopped by with muffins and stayed on the porch nearly an hour. He sat there with her in the late light, not rushing, not glancing at a phone, not carrying that old impatience of a man mentally already at the next obligation. I watched through the screen door and felt something inside me loosen. My son changed more slowly, but perhaps more deeply. Men often do. One Saturday, he asked me if I could come look at a warped gate in his backyard. We spent the better part of the afternoon working side by side, while his little boy rode a plastic truck through the grass in crooked circles. There was sawdust on my shoes, sunlight on the fence posts, and the smell of cut wood in the air. At one point my grandson shouted, "Grandpa knows how to fix everything." No, I thought. I do not. I could not fix the years I had missed. I could not fix the loneliness my wife had carried too quietly. I could not fix the habits that had made my own children expect money from me more easily than tenderness. But standing there with a drill in my hand and my son beside me, I also knew this. I had finally begun to fix the part of my life that was still in front of me. And that mattered. That was not even the part that moved me most. The part that moved me most came later that evening when we got home. My wife was putting away groceries, humming under her breath the way she used to when we were young. I took a bag from her hand without being asked. She looked at me, and there was no ceremony in what she said. Just this: "It's peaceful to have you with me now." Peaceful, not exciting, not impressive, not dramatic. Peaceful. At our age, that word means more than romance ever did in youth. Peace means nobody is performing. Nobody is chasing status at the expense of the room. Nobody is begging to be valued by people who do not truly see them. Peace means the home is inhabited by two real people who have stopped running from themselves. And slowly, almost without us noticing, that peace became our new form of wealth. When I say now that we are rich, I do not mean the kind of rich that makes other people envy you. I mean the kind that lets two old people sit in the same room without resentment pressing between them like a third body. I mean the kind that lets a husband sleep without the old panic that he has failed unless he is producing, and lets a wife exhale without preparing herself for one more evening of emotional leftovers. That richness is quiet, but it reaches farther than money ever did in our marriage. We built it slowly, that is important to say. We did not have one dramatic breakthrough and become wise overnight. We built it the way older people build most good things, by repetition. He kept his mornings, he made the bed, he shaved, he dressed with self-respect even on days when nobody outside would see him. He walked. He wrote his tasks down in a notebook instead of letting his hours dissolve into vague restlessness. He put his phone away part of the morning so the world could stop summoning him long enough for him to hear his own life again. And I changed my own habits too. I stopped acting as if being understanding required me to hide my needs until they turned into hurt. I stopped making excuses for silences that no longer deserved protection. I also stopped treating myself like background furniture in my own home. I dressed properly too. I sat down to eat instead of nibbling while standing at the counter. I returned to little things I had once abandoned because loneliness had made them feel pointless. Fresh flowers in a jar by the window when I found inexpensive ones. Soup made properly, not just assembled. Music low in the afternoon while folding towels. Writing down birthdays and actually mailing cards, not just meaning to. These are not decorative details. They are the way a person tells life, "I am still here, and this day will be lived with some care." That was one of the biggest lessons for both of us. Neglect is contagious. When one part of life starts going emotionally cold, other parts often follow. A marriage cools, then the meals get careless, then the rooms get quieter, then the body moves less, then the spirit starts accepting less joy as normal. But care is contagious too. One made bed can lead to a cleaner room. One honest conversation can lead to another. One walk can lead to better sleep. One small act of presence can begin to thaw a whole household. There was a winter evening, maybe 3 years after he lost that job, when the truth of our new life landed on me fully. It had gotten dark early. The wind was tapping lightly at the porch rail. He was in the kitchen stirring a pot of soup, wearing that old blue cardigan he used to think made him look too old. I was drying dishes. The house smelled like onion, broth, and black pepper. Nothing glamorous, nothing social media would care about. Then the phone rang. It was our daughter asking if we could keep the children Saturday night. He answered, smiled, and said yes without that old distracted tone, without checking another schedule, without sounding like he was fitting family into the margins. He hung up, looked at me, and grinned in a way I had not seen since our 30s. And I thought, there it is. There is the life we were trying to buy all those years, standing right here in a warm kitchen, years after we stopped chasing the wrong version of it. From my side, the most humbling part was realizing how little a man sometimes needs to begin recovering his dignity, and how much he loses when he thinks dignity must come from status. A neighbor knocking on the door, a handrail to fix, a grandchild who believes your hands still know something valuable, a wife who no longer needs you to impress her, only to be present. A decent meal, a day with shape, a body that gets up and participates. These are modest things, but modest things done faithfully can restore a man more deeply than praise ever could. And from my side, the most humbling part was realizing that being loved is not the same as being accompanied. I had been loved all those years, in his way, but I had not always been accompanied. Once he understood that difference, and once I stopped pretending love alone was enough, our marriage became simpler and truer. Less performance, less martyrdom, fewer speeches, more plainness, more asking, more answering, more sitting together at the end of the day as if that, by itself, were a worthy way to spend a life. Which it is. We also learned to stop over-explaining ourselves to people. That matters more in later life than many realize. There were relatives who did not understand why he never went back into another full-time role. There were old colleagues who spoke to him as if stepping off the treadmill meant giving up. There were acquaintances who still measured success by busyness, income, square footage, or whether your children lived in the right neighborhoods. We stopped trying to justify our peace to them. That is another form of wealth, no longer needing outside approval to bless the life that finally fits you. So yes, there are concrete things we would tell any husband and wife who do not want to wake up old and emotionally hungry. Protect the first part of the day from noise. Make the bed. Get dressed as if your own dignity can see you, even when no one else does. Sit down to eat. Turn off the television sometimes and let the room speak. Walk outside. Write down a few real tasks and do them. Help someone in a direct, human way. Stop explaining every boundary to people committed to misunderstanding it. Ask for presence sooner, before loneliness hardens into identity. And when truth arrives, do not waste years defending yourself against it. Use it. If I had known all this at 40, I would have been a different husband. If I had known all this at 40, I would have been a different wife. But we did not know it then. We know it now, and knowing it late is still better than dying without it. When younger people hear a title like ours, they think it must hide some financial secret. They expect a story about quitting a job, taking a risk, making millions, proving the world wrong in the language the world already respects. That is not our story. He quit the American dream at 50 because it had already begun hollowing him out. At 78, he is the richest man he knows because he no longer measures wealth by what can be counted while the soul goes unfed. And I will tell you something as his wife. He is rich now not because he became larger, but because he became available. Available to the day, available to the people in it, available to tenderness, to usefulness, to humility, to ordinary joy. That kind of man is rare, not flashy, rare. And I am rich too, not because life spared us pain. It did not. Not because we fixed every wound perfectly. We did not. I am rich because I no longer live beside a ghost in work clothes. I live beside a man who comes into the kitchen fully arrived, a man who hears me the first time, a man who has stopped kneeling before a dream that would have happily taken every good year and still asked for more. So let us say the lesson plainly, the way old people do when they are finally tired of decorative language. The American dream is dangerous when it teaches a husband to confuse providing with presence and a wife to confuse endurance with love. It is dangerous when it turns a home into a charging station for two exhausted adults instead of a place where life is actually shared. It is dangerous when it rewards appearances while marriages starve in respectable silence. What saved us was smaller and harder and truer. We stopped worshiping scale. We started honoring what was near. We stopped begging the world to certify that our life mattered. We began living in a way that made the day itself answer back. Yes, this matters. Now in the evenings, we sit on the porch if the weather is kind. He keeps an old sweater over the back of his chair. I bring out tea or sometimes nothing at all. We watch the light change on the street, hear a dog bark 2 houses down, see children ride past and neighbors carry groceries in. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we do not. There is no fear in the silence now. That may be the greatest wealth of all. At 78 and 76, we can tell you this without drama. A marriage does not become poor when it has less money. It becomes poor when two people can no longer feel each other inside the life they built. And a marriage becomes rich again when presence returns, when truth is allowed in, and when ordinary days are lived on purpose. He quit the American dream at 50. We found our real life after that. And now, in the only currency that matters at the end, we are wealthy.